if you wanted an indication of the current state of PC gaming, then E3 2011 offered a good snapshot. As ever, the console makers blew millions of dollars on showcasing why their boxes represented the cutting edge of gaming. And yet, one of the biggest console releases of the year, Battlefield 3, was demoed live on stage not on Xbox or PS3, but PC. This won't have come as a surprise to veteran mouse and keyboarders, of course, but for a platform that has driven so much technological change over the years, it's worth remembering just how many times its death sentence has been passed. Casual gaming via Facebook and the like has exploded over the past few years, and the indie sector is alive and kicking, bursting with big ideas on small budgets. But with Xbox 360 almost 6 years old and PS3 nearly 5, middle-aged in console terms, high-end PC gaming is once again pulling clear and giving a taste of the next generation today.
Historically, the games have started to, as the consoles get end of generation, they start looking a bit rougher, and there's sort of a landmark PC title looms, something like Half-Life 2 or Crysis. Historically,
real graphical progress comes in kind of in waves, and we're just on the edge of one. And I think that, that over the next couple of years, like PC is going to continue to really just outstrip the consoles in terms of what they put out.
It's a view shared, unsurprisingly, by those who earn a living from building the engines and tools behind a good deal of today's games. Epic's Unreal Engine has been powering games development since the late 90s.
Don't forget, every game that's built is ultimately built on a PC. Even a console game, a mobile game, a handheld game, these are all built on PCs. So PCs are always going to be the tools through which all of the games get made. But the nice thing is that with a PC, you can simulate, like I say, the future. You can put enough hardware in a PC that it'll show you what a future console will look like. So it's always the most important leading edge platform.
id Software's tech has been around even longer, dating back to the early 90s. The showcase title for id Tech 5 is Rage, due later this year. And while it's coming to consoles, PC is the standard bearer of its most advanced technical features. Speaking to Eurogamer at this year's E3, id boss John Carmack quantified the gulf in performance. A high-end PC, he said, is now 10 times as powerful as the consoles.
There's definitely an age coming where people just start to push it a little bit more. Battlefield 3, as I say, is the one that's most likely to actually, you demonstrate it on PC and people go, wow, that's just 10 times better than anything console can do.
We're certainly at the stage in the life of the consoles where the PCs have shot by them in terms of capabilities.
But before we look at what that means, let's take a look at how often it's been the case. One genre above all has defined technical advancement in gaming over the past 2 decades, and that is, of course, the first-person shooter. Excellent. The likes of Battlefield 3 and Rage are simply the latest expressions of this form. Wolfenstein 3D is credited with kickstarting the FPS phenomenon in 1992. This was superseded quickly by Doom in 1993, which added fancy stuff like improved textures and lighting, and of course multiplayer. And from that point on, the genre has frequently established new benchmarks for gaming on PC first. No!
Has he been infected?
If you want to make a covert approach, remember the Academy stealth course.
I think that you've really got to go back to Wolfenstein and Doom to really show one of those. You played those games and you just thought, right, that's just going to change everything, and it did.
Crysis is a special, notorious case. When it released, commercially available PCs just weren't powerful enough to run it at the highest settings. Can it run Crysis became the standard ironic refrain to reviews of PC hardware. But it also illustrates why PC is so important to gaming as a whole. Its open, upgradable architecture creates an environment that encourages top developers to overreach and aspire in ways not possible on the closed, defined systems of consoles. And that benefits everyone.
Both the Half-Life games were very big news, both in terms of sort of making action games a little bit more grown up and thoughtful, but also just on a technical level really wanting people to upgrade because they just got a sense that this was big and important, so they they really went for it like that. Deus Ex might be getting on a bit now, but that's again a demonstration that PC games could then, and still could now, could just do something so much bigger, more detailed, more thoughtful than a console game would allow, and that sense of being unfettered.
So often what developers do is they make specifically for console and then kind of build stuff on top. They say, oh, we'll have higher resolution, have anti-aliasing, but it's not, they're not shooting for the moon, which Battlefield 3 clearly is, and then sort of preening it back to fit on the consoles. And that is, well, it's like what you'd expect of this. It's what you'd expect a sensible developer to be doing at this time in the cycle. But also, it's just it's so much more forward-looking.
The most dramatic glimpse of the future came not at E3, but the Game Developers Conference back in March, when Epic unveiled its stunning Samaritan demo.
It was kind of our love letter to hardware manufacturers, in that this is what we want to see. We want to see PCs and consoles, basically the next generation gaming we expect will look like that. And that was very well received, and of course we released all the technology behind it as part of the Unreal Development Kit, so anybody can go grab that and start playing with the future if they want to. Super high-end visual effects, amazing lighting, tessellation. Like, we have this awesome smoke that just looks, it looked just completely real, and it was basically a mesh with tessellation, and it was very impressive. So, amazing weather effects, just things that make everything look a lot more realistic. Obviously, lots more polygons, lots more details and textures, right? A lot better shadows and lighting, just a lot more graphical effects you can do. Once people have that kind of processing power, both from the graphics and CPU standpoint, we'll be able to do that much more.
But what's most striking about the Samaritan demo is that it was created on technology you can walk into a shop and buy today.
It's pretty high-end technology, top-of-the-line Intel processor. I think it was an 8-core or 12-core machine, and 3 NVIDIA GTX 580 graphics cards. So that's a pretty expensive machine to build, but if you fast forward a year or 2 years, that should be a fairly common gamer spec.
It's always interesting to watch what Epic are doing, because consoles keep on having all these steps up through different iterations, but at the same time the Unreal Engine just keeps on getting the love poured in.
Mark Rain calls it a love letter, but for a company that holds as much sway as Epic, it's effectively a stern message saying, this is what we can do on PC, and this is what we'd better be able to do on your next consoles.
We hope the console manufacturers look at that and go, geez, if we aim for this kind of hardware in our next consoles, we'll be competitive with what you'll be able to do on a PC in a year and a half from now. A reasonably priced PC. Obviously, you can do it on an expensive PC already.
Coming up in part 2, we visit the PC Specialist UK studio investing heavily in the future of the platform. We speak to a leading multi-platform developer on the challenges of pushing PC while also releasing on aging console hardware. And we take a close look at some of the most powerful PC gaming kit money can buy.